Padre Pio saw the soul of a father who gave his family everything, except faith. Your father worked every day of his life. He put food on the table. He paid the bills. He fixed what broke. He showed up when you needed him. But when you asked him to come to church, he shook his head. When you invited him to pray, he changed the subject. And when he died, you had one question you couldn't let go. Where is he now? In 1962, a woman named Mary Therese Man Lu Ching sat down at her kitchen table and wrote a letter to a friar she had never met. Her hands shook as she wrote. Her father was a wonderful man. Everyone in their neighborhood knew him. If someone needed help moving furniture, he was there before they finished asking. If a family couldn't afford groceries, he showed up with bags. If the car broke down at midnight, he'd drive across town with his toolbox. He never said no to anyone in trouble, but he had one problem that terrified Mary Therese. He drank heavily, almost every day, and her mother drank with him. That was bad enough. But there was something worse. Her father was completely indifferent to religion. He had a vague belief in God, the kind where you tip your hat to the idea but never let it change anything. The Catholic Church? He wanted nothing to do with it. Mary Therese begged him to go to Mass. She pleaded with him to pray. Nothing worked. She felt like she was watching someone she loved walk toward a cliff in the fog, and no matter how loud she screamed, he couldn't hear her. So she wrote to Padre Pio. She had heard about this Italian friar with wounds on his hands and feet, a man who spent 16 hours a day in the confessional, a priest who could see things other people couldn't. She asked him to pray for her parents, to pray that they would convert, to pray that they would stop drinking. She mailed the letter and waited. Months passed. Then, unexpectedly, a reply arrived. Padre Pio was praying for them. If you value documented accounts like this about Padre Pio's life and ministry, subscribe. It's the best way to support this work. Also, comment below and tell us what city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources including Brother Modestino da Pietrelcina's autobiographical book, I, Witness of the Father, published testimonies from the Padre Pio Devotions Archive, and Bernard Ruffin's extensively documented biography, Padre Pio, The True Story, which draws on sworn testimony from friars who lived with the saint for decades, including Father Joseph Pius Martin and Father Agostino of San Marco in Lamas. These are not popular retellings. These are primary sources, direct witnesses, people who saw what Padre Pio saw. Now back to the story. 15 years went by. 1962 became 1977. Mary Therese kept praying. Her father kept drinking. Her mother kept drinking. Nothing changed. Then, in 1977, something shifted. Her parents started asking questions about the Catholic faith. Not aggressive questions, curious questions. They asked for instruction. They attended classes. And that same year, both of them were baptized. Mary Therese wept at the ceremony. Her father was 70 years old. He had spent his entire life rejecting the church, and now he stood at the font, water running down his forehead, becoming what he had always refused to be, a Catholic, but he still drank. Another 6 years passed. 1978. Her father finally stopped. He never touched alcohol again, not a single drop. He had given up the thing that had controlled him for decades. Mary Therese knew it wasn't her persuasion that had done it. It was the prayers of a friar with bleeding hands who had died 10 years earlier. This is where most people stop the story. Conversion, sobriety, happy ending. But there's another story, darker and more precise, that reveals what Padre Pio actually saw when he looked at souls like this. It comes from a young friar named Modestino. He was from Pietrelcina, the same small village in southern Italy where Padre Pio was born. His family lived next door to the Fragione family. His mother remembered young Francesco Fragione walking through the streets with a rosary always in his hand, quiet, serious, praying. Years later, when Modestino felt called to religious life, he wanted to join the Benedictines, but before making that decision, he walked 25 miles from Pietrelcina to San Giovanni Rotondo to ask Padre Pio's advice. When he arrived, he didn't even get the question out. Padre Pio looked at him and said, "You're not going to become a Benedictine. You're going to become a Capuchin, like me." Modestino was stunned. He hadn't said a word. Padre Pio smiled. "I've been praying for you since you were a child." Modestino became a Capuchin friar. He took vows. He was assigned to the monastery in Pietrelcina. He became one of Padre Pio's spiritual sons, one of thousands who looked to the stigmatized friar for guidance. But being a spiritual son of Padre Pio meant something specific. It meant you had to be ready for the truth, even when the truth hurt. One day, Modestino went to visit his father. The man was sick. He had a fever. He had just returned from San Giovanni Rotondo, where he had gone to confession to Padre Pio. When Modestino walked into the room, his father told him something strange. He said that after confession, he had asked Padre Pio a simple question. "Father, when will we see each other again?" Padre Pio's answer was not simple. He said, "We will see each other again in the afterlife. Say hello to our country." Modestino left the room disturbed. What did that mean? He went back to the convent. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept turning the words over in his mind. The next morning at dawn, his cousin Cosimo knocked on the door. His father had died at midnight. He had tried to get out of bed, desperate for air. A stroke killed him instantly. Modestino wept in silence. Padre Pio had known. He had known the exact day. He had known his father had hours left, and he had said goodbye in a way that only made sense after death. Modestino traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo. He needed to see Padre Pio. He needed to ask the question that was burning in his chest. When he arrived, Padre Pio welcomed him with affection. He gave his condolences. Then Modestino asked, "Father, is my father in heaven?" Padre Pio's face changed. He didn't smile. He didn't offer comfort. He said something that felt like a stone dropped into deep water. He was the son of guilt. He has to serve his sentence. Modestino understood. His father was in purgatory, not hell, but purgatory, a place of purification, a place where souls paid the debt for sins forgiven but not yet fully healed. His father had died in the state of grace, but there was still something unfinished, something that needed to burn away before he could stand before God. Modestino asked if he could arrange Gregorian masses for his father's soul. 30 masses, said on 30 consecutive days, a powerful form of intercession for the dead. Padre Pio said, "If your family is in a position to do it, just say it." Modestino went back to Pietrelcina. He went through the village and the countryside on the Questua, the Capuchin tradition of begging for alms, but he wasn't begging for money. He was begging for prayers. He offered every step he took, every effort, every mortification, every discomfort, all of it for one single intention, to support his father's soul. Months passed. Then, one day, Padre Pio called another friar, Giovanni Iamaroni. He gave him a message. Tell Fra Modestino that his father is safe. He was saved by his prayers and his intentions. Now he's in heaven. This is the part most people don't understand. Padre Pio didn't just know where souls went. He saw the journey. He saw the state of a soul the moment it left the body. He saw purgatory not as a concept, but as a location, a condition, a reality as concrete as a locked door. And he saw what opened that door. Prayer. Suffering offered with intention. Masses. The communion of saints reaching across the veil to pull souls from fire into light. He explained it once in a letter to his spiritual director in 1912. He wrote, "For some time I have felt the need to offer myself to the Lord as a victim for poor sinners and for souls in purgatory. This desire has grown continuously in my heart. Until now it has become a powerful passion. I made this offering to the Lord, imploring him to lay on me the punishments that are prepared for sinners and for souls in purgatory, even multiplying them upon me 100-fold, as long as he converts and saves sinners and quickly releases the souls in purgatory." Padre Pio didn't just pray for the dead, he suffered for them. He took their punishment onto his own body. The wounds on his hands, feet, and side bled for 50 years, from September 20th, 1918, until just before his death on September 23rd, 1968. 50 years of open wounds that never became infected, that smelled like roses, that doctors examined and could not explain. Those wounds were not decoration, they were substitution. He was standing in the gap between souls and God, offering his own pain so that others could be freed. In 1922, Bishop Alberto Costa asked Padre Pio if he had ever seen a soul in purgatory. Padre Pio answered, "I have seen so many of them that they don't scare me anymore." He said it like someone talking about neighbors. He saw them constantly. They came to him. They asked for help. He described one encounter in detail. It was winter, 1917. He was sitting by the fireplace in the guest room of the friary at San Giovanni Rotondo. It had snowed heavily that day. He was alone, absorbed in prayer. Then an old man sat down beside him. The man wore an old-fashioned cloak, the kind southern Italian peasants still wore at the time. Padre Pio looked at him confused. He couldn't understand how anyone had entered the friary. All the doors were locked. It was late at night. He asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" The man said, "Padre Pio, I am Pietro di Mauro, son of Nicola, nicknamed Prococo. I died in this friary on the 18th of September, 1908, in cell number 4, when it was still a poorhouse. One night, while in bed, I fell asleep with a lighted cigar, which ignited the mattress, and I died, suffocated and burned. I'm still in purgatory. I need a holy mass in order to be freed. God permitted that I come and ask you for help." Padre Pio stood up. He said, "Rest assured that tomorrow I will celebrate Mass for your liberation." He walked the old man to the door of the friary. He opened it. The moon lit up the square, covered with snow. When Padre Pio turned around, the man was gone. He felt faint. He went back inside, shaking. The next day, he told his superior, Father Paolino da Casacalenda, what had happened. He asked permission to celebrate a Mass for Pietro di Mauro. Father Paolino gave permission. Then he went to the town hall. He checked the records. On September 18th, 1908, a man named Pietro di Mauro had died in that building, in that cell, in a fire. suffocated, burned. Everything the ghost had said was verified. Padre Pio later said, "As many souls of the dead come up this road to the monastery as souls of the living." The road to San Giovanni Rotondo was crowded with the invisible. Souls in purgatory climbed the mountain just like the pilgrims. They waited for him in the corridors. They stood beside him in the chapel. They asked for one thing, a mass, a prayer, someone to remember them. Because in purgatory, souls cannot merit anything for themselves. They can only wait. They can only hope that someone on earth will love them enough to intercede. This is where the story of Mary Teresa's father and Modestino's father intersect. Both men were good. Both men were generous. Both men gave everything they had to their families. They worked. They provided. They showed up. But one thing was missing: faith. Not the vague belief in God that lets you sleep at night, the kind of faith that changes how you live, the kind of faith that makes you kneel, the kind of faith that admits you need mercy. Mary Teresa's father spent 70 years rejecting the church. He was baptized at 70. He stopped drinking at 76. He had maybe a decade, maybe less, to live as a Catholic. When he died, what happened? We don't know. Mary Teresa didn't write that part of the story. But if Padre Pio had been alive, if she had asked him, would his answer have been different from the one he gave Modestino? Padre Pio once told a widow whose husband had ended his own life, "There is very little hope." Then he saw her face collapse, and he added, "But pray, keep praying." Days later he told her, he was saved. Between the bridge and the river he repented. God's mercy reached him in the last seconds. But the fact that mercy is infinite doesn't mean the soul is instantly purified. Forgiveness is immediate. Healing takes time. That's what purgatory is, the healing. The problem with modern people is they want heaven to be automatic. They want to live however they want, ignore God most of their lives, and then slip into eternity like walking through an open door. But the saints saw something different. They saw that holiness is specific. It has weight, it has shape, it has standards. And if you spend your entire life building yourself into something crooked, you can't just walk into the presence of infinite purity without being straightened first. Purgatory isn't punishment, it's mercy. It's God saying, "I want you in heaven, but you're not ready yet. Let me finish the work." Padre Pio understood this better than almost anyone. He didn't sentimentalize death. He didn't tell people what they wanted to hear. When someone asked him if their loved one was in heaven, he told the truth. Sometimes the truth was joyful, sometimes it was terrifying. In 1944, the friars at San Giovanni Rotondo heard loud voices downstairs late at night. They were shouting, "Viva Padre Pio! Long live Padre Pio!" The superior, Padre Raffaele, told the doorkeeper, Fra Gerardo, to let the people out and lock the door properly. Fra Gerardo went downstairs. He found no one. The door was double locked, exactly as it should be. He went back upstairs and reported. The voices had been souls. Souls on their way from purgatory to paradise, stopping to thank Padre Pio for the prayers that had freed them. Another night, Padre Pio was praying alone in the choir of the church. He heard footsteps. He heard the sound of candles and flower vases being moved on the altar. He called out, "Who is it?" No one answered. He went to the grate and looked. In the shadow, lit only by the tabernacle lamp, he saw a young friar cleaning the altar. He said, "What are you doing in the dark?" The friar said, "I'm cleaning." Padre Pio asked, "Why are you cleaning at this hour? Go to bed." The friar looked at him. He said, "I am a Capuchin novice who spends his time of purgatory here. I am in need of prayers." Then he disappeared. Padre Pio said later, "I realized he had been assigned to care for the altar during his life. He passed in front of the tabernacle many times without making the proper reverence. For this sin, he was in purgatory, and the Lord sent him to me. He asked me to decide how much longer he had to suffer in those flames. Padre Pio told him, 'You must remain in purgatory until the Mass in the morning.' The friar said, 'Cruel?' and vanished. Padre Pio said afterward, 'I still have a wound in my heart. I could have sent him immediately to paradise. Instead, he had to stay one more night in the flames of purgatory.' Think about that. A friar, a man who gave his life to God, sent to purgatory for one repeated sin, passing the tabernacle without reverence. Not heresy, not murder, not theft, just carelessness. Just forgetting, again and again, to acknowledge the presence of Christ. And for that, he burned. Not forever, but for a time measured in the suffering it took to purify the habit of disrespect. This is the precision of justice. This is what holiness costs. Now think about the fathers, the good men, the generous men, the men who worked every day, who provided for their families, who helped their neighbors, who never stole, never killed, never lied in ways that destroyed lives, but they didn't pray. They didn't go to Mass. They didn't confess. They didn't live as if God mattered. They lived as if this world was all there was. And when they died, what happened? If they repented at the end, even in the last breath, they were saved. But saved doesn't mean ready. It means forgiven. It means the door to heaven is open, but there's still a threshold to cross, and purgatory is that threshold. It's where the soul learns what it refused to learn in life, that God is real, that holiness is necessary, that every careless word, every wasted hour, every moment spent building a kingdom for yourself instead of surrendering to His, all of it has to be accounted for. Modestino's father was called the son of guilt, not the son of damnation, the son of guilt, guilt that could be paid, guilt that could be burned away, but it required something. It required his son walking through the countryside, begging for prayers, offering every step as a sacrifice. It required Gregorian masses, 30 masses in 30 days. It required the communion of saints, the living interceding for the dead, pulling them out of fire with the rope of prayer. Mary Teresa's father was baptized at 70. He stopped drinking at 76. He spent maybe 10 years, maybe 15, as a practicing Catholic. When he died, did he go straight to heaven? We don't know. But if you asked Padre Pio if you could go back in time and stand in front of him and say, "My father was a good man. He was generous. He helped everyone. But he ignored God for 70 years and only converted at the end. Where is he now?" What would Padre Pio say? Would he smile and tell you not to worry? Or would he look at you with those eyes that saw through walls and say, "He was the son of guilt. He has to serve his sentence, but pray, and don't stop." In 1926, Padre Pio's own father, Orazio Forgione, came to visit him at the friary. He was assigned to cell number 10. When he tried to enter, 2 friars stood in front of the door, blocking him. He explained who he was. They didn't move. He took a step forward, trying to force his way in. They disappeared. He ran to Padre Pio, terrified. Padre Pio said, "Dad, don't get agitated. Those are 2 poor friars in purgatory. They have to serve their purgatory in the spot where they disobeyed the rule of St. Francis. 2 friars, dead for who knows how long, still assigned to the place where they sinned, still working off the debt. This is the reality Padre Pio saw every day. Purgatory wasn't abstract, it wasn't theoretical, it was a location, a condition, a crowd of souls pressing against the veil, begging for help. And the help they needed wasn't thoughts and prayers in the modern sense. It wasn't good vibes, it was specific, concrete, a mass, a rosary, a sacrifice offered with intention. Padre Pio said, "We must empty purgatory with our prayers. Not someday, not when it's convenient, now, every day, every hour." The fathers who gave everything to their families except faith, where are they now? If they repented, they're saved. But saved doesn't mean comfortable. It doesn't mean instant relief. It means they're in the hands of a God who loves them enough to finish what he started. And that finishing work burns. It burns away the self-sufficiency. It burns away the pride that said, "I don't need church, I don't need confession. I'm a good person, that's enough." It burns away the years of indifference. It burns until what's left is pure, until what's left can stand in the presence of infinite holiness without flinching. And while they burn, they wait. They wait for someone on earth to remember them, to light a candle, to have a mass said, to pray a rosary, to offer a single Hail Mary with intention. Padre Pio once said, "If you understood the value of a single Hail Mary, you would recite nothing else for the rest of your life." Because even one prayer, even one small act of love, can reach into purgatory and pull a soul toward the light. He told the story of a soul who came to thank him for a single Hail Mary he had prayed months earlier. He had forgotten about it, but heaven hadn't. That one prayer had become the thing that pushed the soul out of suffering and into paradise. This is what people forget. Prayer isn't optional. It's warfare. It's the weapon that breaks chains. It's the rope that pulls the drowning to shore. And the souls in purgatory cannot pray for themselves. They can only wait. They can only hope that someone on earth loves them enough to fight for them. Modestino fought for his father. He walked the roads of Pietrelcina, begging, offering, sacrificing, until Padre Pio finally said, "Your father is safe. He's in heaven now." That's what it took. Months of intentional, agonizing intercession. How many fathers are in purgatory right now because no one is praying for them? How many men who worked hard, who provided, who were kind, who were generous, but who never bent the knee, who never admitted they needed God, who died with forgiveness, but not purification? How many of them are waiting? Waiting for a son or daughter to remember, waiting for a mass, waiting for someone to care enough to fight. Padre Pio's final years were marked by one overwhelming reality. He knew he was dying. He knew his time on earth was ending. And he knew what was waiting on the other side. Not fear, not uncertainty, but a face-to-face encounter with the God he had served in blood and pain for 50 years. On September 20th, 1968, he celebrated his last public Mass. Thousands of people filled the church. After Mass, he was taken to the veranda. His spiritual son, Modestino, was there. Padre Pio was deeply moved. He could barely speak. He cried silently. Then he motioned for Modestino to come closer. Modestino knelt. Padre Pio took the rosary from his wrist. the one he always carried, and placed it in Modestino's hands. It was a gift. It was a commissioning. It was Padre Pio saying, "You carry this now. You pray for them now." 3 days later, Padre Pio died, September 23rd, 1968. He was 81 years old. Within 10 minutes of his death, doctors examined his body. The wounds were gone. The stigmata that had bled for 50 years had vanished. No scars, no marks, just smooth skin, as if the wounds had never existed. The only trace left was the faintest outline on his hands, visible for a few moments, and then even that disappeared. The suffering was over. The substitution was complete. He had stood in the gap for 50 years, and now he was free. But the souls in purgatory are still waiting. They're still climbing the mountain. They're still standing in corridors, hoping someone will notice. And if you have a father who gave you everything except faith, if you have a parent who worked and provided and loved but never prayed, never went to Mass, never confessed, and you don't know where they are now, you have a choice. You can wonder. Or you can fight. You can have Masses said. You can pray the rosary. You can offer your own suffering, your own discomfort, your own sacrifices, and say, "This is for them. Pull them out. Bring them home." Because Padre Pio's message wasn't comforting. It was true. He didn't tell people their loved ones were automatically in heaven. He told them the truth. And then he told them what to do about it. Pray, suffer, offer. Don't stop. In 1945, Padre Pio told one of the friars, "I took a plenary indulgence and sent it to your mother. She's in paradise now." He didn't wait for permission. He didn't ask if it was appropriate. He saw a soul in need, and he acted. That's what the communion of saints is. The living fighting for the dead, the saints in heaven interceding, the souls in purgatory waiting, and all of it connected by prayer, by love, by the refusal to let anyone be forgotten. The widow came to Padre Pio and asked about her husband who had taken his own life. Padre Pio said, "There's very little hope." She wept. Then days later he told her he was saved. Between the bridge and the river, he repented. But even that mercy, even that last-second salvation, didn't mean the man walked straight into heaven. It meant the door was open. It meant there was hope. It meant someone had to pray. The Church teaches that those who die by suicide are not automatically damned because God can reach a soul in the final instant, in the space between decision and death. But reaching them and purifying them are two different things. Salvation is a gift. Sanctification is a process. And the fathers who spent their lives being good without being holy, they need that process. They need the fire. They need the prayers. They need someone on earth to remember that love doesn't end at the grave. In October 1958, Pope Pius XII died at Castel Gandolfo. On that day, Padre Pio told a friar, "Pius XII is in heaven. I saw him during Mass. Immediate, instant, no purgatory." But Pius XII had been the Pope. He had lived a life of public sanctity, of daily Mass, of constant prayer. He had carried the weight of the Church on his shoulders. Of course, he went straight to heaven. But what about the man who never prayed? What about the man who was generous but never humble? What about the man who provided but never surrendered? Padre Pio would tell you the truth. And the truth is this: generosity without faith is not enough. Kindness without holiness is not enough. Working hard, being a good neighbor, putting food on the table, fixing what's broken, showing up when people need you, all of it is good. All of it matters. But it's not enough. Because heaven isn't for good people, it's for holy people. And holiness requires one thing above everything else: surrender. Admitting that you're not enough, admitting that you need God, admitting that without Him, all your goodness is just polished pride. The fathers who refuse to bend the knee, who live good lives but never sacred lives, they will face a choice at the moment of death: repent or perish. And if they repent, if in that final second they cry out, "God have mercy," He will. But mercy doesn't erase the years of indifference. It forgives them, and then it purifies them. And that purification is fire. Modestino's father died, Padre Pio told him. He was the son of guilt. Months of prayer later, Padre Pio said, "He's in heaven now." That's the pattern. That's the hope. Not automatic salvation, not cheap grace, but real grace. The kind that costs something. The kind that requires the living to fight for the dead. The kind that says, "I will not forget you. I will not let you burn alone. I will pray until you're free." In 1917, the friary records at San Giovanni Rotondo show an entry. A man named Pietro di Mauro died in cell number 4 in a fire caused by a lighted cigar. Suffocated? Burned. 69 years later, his soul was still there, waiting for one Mass, one prayer, one person to care. Padre Pio gave him that Mass, and the next day, the soul was gone, free. After 69 years of waiting, one Mass opened the door. But understand something critical about what Padre Pio saw. He didn't just see random souls. He saw patterns. He saw what sent people to purgatory and what kept them there. And one of the patterns he saw repeatedly was this: good people who never became holy people. People who lived moral lives but never sacred lives. People who did everything right by human standards but missed the one thing that mattered by divine standards: surrender to God. There's a testimony from a woman named Nina Campanile. Her brother Pasqualino died in combat on September 26, 1916, during World War I. Her mother sent Nina to Padre Pio with her teacher, Vitorina Ventrella, to ask if Pasqualino was saved. Padre Pio said, "Yes, he is saved, but he needs your prayers. Saved but not free, saved but still suffering." That was the answer Nina's mother didn't want to hear. She wanted to hear he was in heaven. Instead, she heard he was in the fire. And the only way to pull him out was prayer. Padre Pio told another story in a letter to his spiritual director, Father Agostino, in January 1913. He wrote about being beaten by demons. He said, "It was late at night, and the devils assaulted me with a terrible fracas, and jumped on me and threw me to the floor and beat me very hard and scattered pillows, books, chairs, while pronouncing very dirty words. The attacks were real, physical, violent. Other friars heard the noise. They came to his room and found furniture overturned, Padre Pio bleeding. Why would demons attack a friar so viciously? Because he was doing something they hated. He was freeing souls from purgatory. He was intercepting people on their way to hell and pulling them back. He was standing in the gap, offering his own suffering as payment for sins that weren't his. The demons couldn't touch the souls once they were saved, so they took out their rage on the man who saved them. Padre Pio's suffering wasn't random, it was strategic. He explained it in a letter in 1912. He said, "I suffer for a particular individual for almost 2 months. He didn't know who the person was. He just knew that God was using his pain to save someone. Later, he would find out. A conversion, a healing, a soul snatched from the edge. And the cost was 2 months of agony. That's the economy of grace. That's how mercy works. Someone pays. Either the sinner pays in purgatory or someone who loves them pays on earth. Padre Pio chose to pay. Again and again and again. He told his spiritual director, Father Agostino, "Padre, it seems to me that Jesus wants this. He wants me to offer myself as a victim." And Father Agostino, who knew him better than almost anyone, said yes. He gave permission. And from that moment, Padre Pio's life became a continuous offering. He didn't just pray for souls in purgatory. He became purgatory for them. He took their fire onto himself so they could go free. This is why his message about fathers who lived good lives but faithless lives is so urgent. Because if no one on earth is willing to suffer for them, they suffer alone. If no one prays, they wait. If no one offers a mass, they burn. And time in purgatory isn't like time on earth. The Church has never defined how long purgatory lasts. Some saints said it could be minutes, others said centuries. St. Catherine of Genoa wrote that one moment in purgatory is more painful than anything experienced in this life. The pain isn't physical. It's spiritual. It's the agony of knowing you could be with God right now, seeing him face to face. But you're not ready. You're not clean. And the cleaning hurts. Padre Pio saw this every day. He saw souls in agony, not because God was punishing them, but because they were finally seeing what they had refused to see in life, that God is real, that holiness matters, that every moment wasted, every opportunity ignored, it all added up. And now the bill was due. But there was hope, because the church militant could fight for the church suffering. And Padre Pio was the bridge. He stood between the living and the dead and said, "Give me your prayers, give me your sacrifices. I'll make sure they reach the ones who need them." He once told a group of friars, "More souls of the dead from purgatory than of the living climb this mountain to see me." The pilgrims, the crowds, the thousands who traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo every year were outnumbered by the invisible, by the dead, by souls in purgatory who knew Padre Pio could help them, who knew that one word from him, one mass, one prayer, could shorten their sentence. And what did those souls tell him? What did they say about why they were there? One friar asked Padre Pio in 1922, "Have you seen many souls in hell?" And Padre Pio said, "I believe that not a great number of souls go to hell. God is too merciful." Then he paused. "But purgatory is full of people who repented but didn't change, full of people who believed in God but never lived for him, full of fathers who worked hard, loved their families, helped their neighbors, and died without ever bending the knee." This is the part where the modern mind rebels. We've been told that God's mercy means everyone gets in, that as long as you're a good person, heaven is guaranteed. But the saints saw something different. Heaven is not a participation trophy. Heaven is union with God, and you cannot be united with infinite purity while you're still stained. Something has to give. Either you're purified here, through suffering and sacrifice, or you're purified there in the fire of purgatory where every attachment, every pride, every refusal to surrender is burned away. Padre Pio's father, Orazio Forgione, was a good man. He worked the fields. He provided for his family. He even traveled to America to earn money so his son could get an education. But when Orazio came to visit Padre Pio in 1926 and saw the two dead friars blocking the door to cell number 10, Padre Pio said, "Those are two poor friars in purgatory. They're serving their sentence." Even to his own father he spoke the truth. Purgatory is real. Souls are there, and they need help. Orazio died in 1946. Padre Pio was at his bedside, and when Orazio took his last breath, Padre Pio saw where he went. Those who knew him said Padre Pio prayed for his father's soul every day for years afterward. Why would he do that if Orazio went straight to heaven? Because even a good man, even a man who raised a saint, still has debts to pay. The testimony of Mary Therese about her father shows the same pattern. 15 years of prayer, 15 years of waiting, finally, at 70, conversion. At 76, sobriety. But how many years did he have left to live as a Catholic, to grow in holiness, to undo 70 years of indifference? Not many. And when he died, what then? Mary Therese doesn't say, but Padre Pio would. He would say, he was the son of guilt. Pray for him, don't stop. Because the truth is this, every father who gave his family everything except faith is now facing the consequence. If he repented, he's saved. But saved doesn't mean finished. It means the journey has begun. And the journey through purgatory is long when you spent your whole life refusing to take the first step. Modestino walked the roads of Pietrelcina for months, begging for prayers, offering every step for his father's soul. Finally, the message came. Your father is safe. He's in heaven. Months. That's what it took. And Modestino was a friar. He knew how to pray. He knew how to sacrifice. But what about the children who don't know? What about the sons and daughters raised by good, hardworking fathers who never prayed, never went to church? When those fathers die, who prays for them? Who fights for them? This is the tragedy Padre Pio saw. Not just souls in purgatory with no one praying for them, forgotten, abandoned, left to suffer alone. Padre Pio told a friar once, "The greatest tragedy is not that souls go to purgatory, it's that so many stay there so long because no one remembers them." He said it with tears, because he saw them every day, waiting, hoping, calling out for help that never came. So here's the question. If your father gave you everything except faith, if he worked every day but never bent the knee, if he was generous and kind by every human standard but ignored God, where is he now? You don't know, but you can do something. You can have a mass said, you can pray a rosary, you can offer sacrifice, you can do what Modestino did. You can say, this is for him, every step, every prayer, every discomfort. Pull him out, bring him home, because that's what love does. It doesn't stop at the grave. It fights through the veil. It reaches into the fire and pulls the burning out. Padre Pio spent 50 years doing that. And now it's your turn. How long has your father been waiting?